So it's the new year, and you've just made this huge decision to move abroad. But where are you going to go? In this video, I'm going to give you 10 things to consider to help you make that choice. Hello, Happy New Year. My name is Stacy, and what better time to start a video series on this topic, which is 10 things to consider when you are planning to move abroad. And this is not at all a inclusive list, but they are the top 10 things I would say that are the most important. And I'm not going to go into full detail in one video because that would take like a couple hours. So I'm going to just kind of quickly run down the list, and then what I'm going to do is more in-depth videos to support each one of these considerations. And before you ask yourself, what does she know about this? Well, I've been living abroad now for over 6 years. I have lived long-term in 2 different countries, Mexico, and now I'm in Poland, very different places. So I kind of know a little bit about how to, move abroad, how to plan, and there are a lot of things I learned the hard way. And so I'm going to share these considerations with you, and hopefully they will help you in your planning process not be so overwhelmed. Because when you make a decision like this, it's very easy to get overwhelmed with information because there is so much out there and a lot of it is incorrect. So this isn't about visas. I'm not an immigration specialist. I'm not here to recommend one country over another country. This is really across the board for anyone who is considering a move abroad. Ideally before you decide what country you want to go to, because you don't want to decide the country first and then try to fit into that country or make your lifestyle fit into that country if it's not really for you. Okay, so it's New Year's Eve. Let's get into it. So the number one thing should be kind of obvious, but that is your budget. And not just your monthly expenses budget, but your budget for actually moving. Because depending on where you go, that cost can vary widely and greatly. So you want to include not just your monthly living expense budget, but also how much money you have to actually move. Okay, so when you're doing your budget, especially for monthly costs, and the moving part is not not necessarily moving your stuff, but moving yourself, moving your body. Like, are you going to go to Asia? Are you going to go to Europe? Are you going to go to Mexico? All very different costs involved there. So, do kind of a budget spreadsheet or on paper, whatever floats your boat. A moving budget, that includes travel, that includes your belongings, and then what is your budget for monthly costs? And just do US dollars because you're going to figure out, the currency later on where those US dollars would go the furthest. Okay, so next is your income sources. And that will be, are you still working? Are you still working remotely? And if you need to work, do you think that you want to look for a job in your new home country? Is this passive income? Is it retirement, like pension, Social Security? Because that is going to really narrow your choices as to where you can go because of residency constraints. Not all countries have a digital nomad visa. Not all countries have a retirement visa. Not all countries will allow you to come there and look for a job. You need to already have an offer and a contract from a local company. So You definitely need to figure out where your income is going to be coming from. Okay. Next will be climate. And this is obviously very important if you want to live somewhere that gets super cold. And, I live in Poland and it is super cold right now and kind of dark all the time. So I would say that climate can maybe be in your negotiable column for some people. I don't know. Or do you want it to be like hot and hotter all year? Like the seasons are hot and hotter. Is that what you want? Or do you want like a mild winter and a mild summer? Think about what will make you the happiest as far as climate goes, or if that's something you negotiate if a place meets so many other of your requirements or ticks all your other boxes. Then the next thing is the language. So I would say you need to feel somewhat comfortable with learning another language or having people speak another language around you, or, there are larger cities in different countries, where luckily you can get by with English. But maybe you already know another language, so that would help you somehow with where you choose to go. So definitely it's a consideration unless you're going to go to, like England, you know what I mean? So there's not too many places where like English is the official language. Sometimes it's like not even my official language anymore. So you just want to think about that. And in larger cities across the world, usually you can somewhat get by with just knowing English, but I would still ask yourself how comfortable you feel with learning another language. Because even if English is widely spoken, it's really a good idea to still learn some basic level of the local language. Okay. Then the next one is if you are in a couple or are you going by yourself? And I say that because some places are easier to live and safer to live depending on your situation. If you're by yourself, I don't know, if you're by yourself, maybe you do want to live in the middle of nowhere because that's just how you are. Me personally, I don't want to live in the middle of nowhere by myself. I want to be like in a city with people around me and things to do, and everything's very convenient, and I can have everything I want delivered, and everything's right at my fingertips. Because I don't really have help, carrying things and, driving for an hour into the town, stuff like that. So, if you're in a couple and you guys want to live somewhere more suburban or like on a farm or something like that, and you feel comfortable, that's great. But, there's also a safety factor involved. Poland overall is a very safe country for women. You can look that up. So I like it here. And I will compromise a lot when it comes to the climate, to have my safety. If you're in a couple, I don't know, maybe safety in numbers. So it's not as intimidating, to be in another country when you're with somebody. So next is, of course, if you're bringing children with you, you need to think about what educational opportunities are available if there's an international school, or if you just want to throw them right into like a regular local public school or private school. A lot of larger, mid-sized to large cities have international schools that can be taught in both languages, local and English. So education is just something that varies widely between different countries. And so definitely think about what you require or what type of education you would like your children to have. Secondly, is pets. I have moved abroad at first with 2 cats. Unfortunately, one passed away, so I just have the one now. So I moved with them to Mexico. I've now moved with one from Mexico to Europe. And so there's a lot of paperwork and planning involved there. Not a lot of places will require a quarantine, but they will absolutely require some level of forms and paperwork, and they all have their very own process for when you're bringing your pet into the country. So that's definitely something that you want to look up and research. You know, the EU has the EU pet passport. So even though it's like a standard pet passport, still every country has their own little rules a little bit. Like maybe one country, you can't get an EU pet passport if you're not yet a resident. But for example, the first EU country I arrived to with my cat was Portugal. And so that right when I got there, and while my USDA certificate was still valid, I was able to get her an EU pet passport. So she has an EU passport and I don't. And so it's very easy once I get that to travel like within Europe with her. You just have to show them this pet passport at the airport and you're golden. And I think the only thing you really need to update is the rabies, if they even check that. So, you know, it's a consideration. I know I believe flying into the UK, internationally, you cannot bring your pet in the cabin. They have to be cargo. So things like that, like some people will fly into Europe, you know, into the EU and then drive, you know, channel it over to the UK or take the train and then it's fine. But they have their reasons. I'm not sure what they are because I wasn't going there, but they have their reasons, I'm sure, why they will not allow you to bring any pet, regardless of size, in the cabin of the plane. Next would be lifestyle. Do you want, you know, are you looking for like a quiet, beachy lifestyle? You don't really care if there's a whole lot to do? Or do you want a lot of culture and a lot of constantly, there's always something to do right at your fingertips? You will obviously need to be in a city for that. And that's what I choose to do. There is about 20 things to do every single day. It's almost an embarrassment of riches of things to do where I am. And it's nice because I can do nothing. But if I want to do something, there's plenty to do for, you know, whatever tickles your fancy. I go to the Philharmonia, I go to the movies, I go to concerts, I go to expat meetups. You know, there's like just, you know, festivals. There's just so much to do, even in the cold, dark winter. Okay, so think about what kind of lifestyle you want to have, because if you like to have a lot of culture, like museums and concerts and places, you know, shopping and all of this, and you move to the middle of nowhere, you know, it's going to be a hard adjustment if that's not really what you're looking for. So, you know, really think about how you see your lifestyle. If you want the option to have a lot of things to do pretty close by, or do you just want to like live at the beach and, I don't know, just chill out and not have anything to do? And then number 10, and like I said, this is not all inclusive. You might have your own other specific considerations and requirements. These are pretty important and pretty general, which I would say could apply to almost anyone. So healthcare is the last one on my list. And this is very important to pretty much everyone if you want to have access to quality, affordable healthcare, which you can do pretty much anywhere except the United States. Surprise. So some countries, when you become a resident, you are eligible for their national health program. And then you have the option to use that, or you can also use that alongside of, private healthcare, private doctors, and paying out of pocket, which is extremely affordable, like I said, everywhere else. And you can both be in the national public health plan and have a private health plan, also very affordable. So, for example, if I am in the national health plan here because I'm a tax resident here and I pay my taxes here. So basically, I'm already in the national health plan. But if I want to go to a specialist and I don't want to have to wait, for 6 months or whatever, I can go privately. And in US dollars, a consultation with, say, a dermatologist would be, I don't know, $80 US, about thereabouts. So some charge slightly a few more dollars than others, but I would say around $80. And if you go to the office and they run a test, for example, sometimes they don't charge you extra because you're already there, or if you choose to get an appointment where you have a consultation, but you also want I don't know, an ultrasound, it'll only be like $30 more. It's just crazy. So crazy in a good way. So I experienced this both in Mexico and here in Poland. It's and you just call up and make an appointment and you can get right in, and it's not big, huge offices where you're waiting like 2 hours for your appointment. It's like it is totally different world, literally. So anyway, quick recap. Number 1 was budget. Number 2 was your income sources. Number 3, climate. Number 4, language. Number 5, are you couple or solo? 6, are you bringing children? What type of education do you want them to have? Are you bringing pets? Languages is number 8. Lifestyle. What kind of lifestyle do you want? 9. And healthcare is 10. These are in no particular order, but I would say probably your budget and your income sources are going to be 1 and 2. And then the rest you can kind of shuffle around. I mean, you may not have children or pets, so then you could just take those considerations off the table, So those are the 10. And I will do future videos to kind of do a deep dive into some of these. I mean, obviously some are a little self-explanatory, but there are some that could require more explanation or more food for thought. So I will do those in a follow-up video because I don't want this video to be an hour or 2. And, we all have things to do. But, if you've already made this decision, you may or may not know. But you don't have to be rich or wealthy or 100% debt-free. Ask me because I know. To move abroad. But what you do need is very careful planning and researching times 1,000, really. So anyway, I hope that you found this useful. really have an honest conversation with yourself or your partner about these things, because you don't want to make a wrong decision here. You almost have like one shot to do this unless you are wealthy, and then you could just like, oh, I don't like it here, go somewhere else. Maybe you can. But if you have basically, one shot, like you have to go somewhere and it'll be a while before you can go somewhere else, you want to try to get it right. And nowhere is going to check every box here of what your preferences are. So think about also what is a deal breaker and what is negotiable. So you have your negotiables and non-negotiable list. And then, the pros and cons, because like I said, not every place is going to fulfill every need or desire that you have. So decide what kind of budget, what kind of money you're working with, and then kind of, go from there. And then you can start to research different countries. But there is a ton of information out there and different channels that give you such great information about all the different countries and all the different visa processes. But don't use that as your only guide or as your source of truth. If you decide on a country, or you have it narrowed down to like 3 countries or 2 countries, please go to the government website of those countries so that you have the real and latest information about their process. And, use it as YouTube as one of your tools, not all your tools. You need to cross-reference, go on the internet, ChatGPT, YouTube, the official government websites, things like that. And then, because you don't want to waste time and money, and you don't want to become overwhelmed with information. You kind of want to narrow it down to, okay, this is our criteria. This is what we need. This is what we can negotiate on or not negotiate on. And that, I'm telling you, that will greatly narrow down your choices. And that way you won't be so overwhelmed. Like, oh, but Italy's pretty and Spain's pretty and Portugal has this. And because none of those may not meet your, non-negotiables. You don't know until you do this list, and then you kind of try to start looking for places that meet your list. So hopefully this was helpful. And I look forward to sharing more videos with you in depth about these considerations. And I will also be sharing in the future how-tos, other tips and advice. For example, what to do with your mail, what to do with your phone number, your U.S. phone number, what to do with your bank, things like that. And little tiny details. And some of these things you want to do before you go. You don't want to get somewhere and then have to try to do them from wherever you are, for sure. Some things, so there's an order of things for sure. And I'm going to try to help you with that. So I'm going to end it here. I think this is long enough. And I will see you in future videos. And again, Happy New Year.